Hello and welcome to the Blueprint, where the goal is to be whole. Today is day 8 of 40 days of fasting, and today has really been about rest. I woke up, well, I kind of went to bed later than I normally do last night. That was only because I took a nap, and I slept longer than I wanted to. But today, when I got up, it was 7:30, and I was going to push myself to go work. And one of the reasons was because I have $100 food budget, and since I'm not eating, I don't have to spend that. The idea was I would save that $100 for the next 5, 6 weeks over this fast, and just have it in savings if I need something, or whatever it may be. But I ended up going to the store to get some water. And when you go to the store to get one thing, you end up buying stuff that you don't necessarily need. I come out with I think it was like $72 worth of stuff. And the water is only $5 and like some change. So I get 2 cases of water because I knew I was going to need it. And then I got pans and just all kinds of stuff that is just like, you don't need this because you're not eating for the next, 5 weeks. So why are you buying this? So I'm sitting on the side of my bed and I realize I feel uncomfortable because the money that I was going to save for whatever things that are happening in the future, I ended up spending most of it. So right then and there, I also realized that one, that's making me uncomfortable. And two, I'm going to drive not necessarily because I need this money to pay something, but because I need to distract myself from whatever discomfort I'm feeling. And then instead of leaning into it and allow myself to just be where I'm at. And that's hard. It's hard to face the truth about where you are in life. It's hard to, feel like you did everything that you were supposed to do in terms of, just trying to be a good man, trying to be a good person, and following God to the best of your ability, and your life is just not where you expected it to be. I'm been divorced twice, uh, in debt that I just did not believe in, but I had to make sacrifices, or at least I thought I did in those moments. I developed diabetes actually working, which is wild, right? So I drive Uber and Lyft full time. And, as a kid watching my grandmother stick herself with needles, I was like, I don't never want to do that. So I tried to stay away from everything that, you know, they did in terms of food that would cause diabetes. Now they called it sugar diabetes. So in my mind, I'm like, "Nah, I just got to stay away from, a lot of sugar." But I didn't know that bread, rice, potatoes, pasta, all these things that I love to eat, create sugar in your body. And driving, I would I would drive at that time, I was driving 10 to 12 hours a day. And many days I wasn't taking a break because I had to reach the goal because I had a family to take care of. I got, a wife and 4 children that I gotta provide a roof over their head. So I'm working to make sure that I can do what I'm supposed to do to to provide. And as a result of that, the only time I really got is to I gotta buy fast food because it allows me to go to the drive-through, and get back on the road, and I can drive and eat at the same time. Well, what ends up happening with that is you're not moving. Your body naturally burns off energy, but it only burns it off, you know, at a certain rate. Um, if you're not moving. If you have a job that, you're constantly moving, then it's going to burn things off. And I couldn't figure out for the life of me how I developed diabetes. And as I learned more about diabetes and I learned more about um, when things happen, because I have a tendency, I'm going to go back and I'm going to look when, because I know I checked my blood at one point and it was fine. And then another point, it was this. And then another point, it was what was happening in my life. And what I realized was that things began to change when I started driving Uber and Lyft. And that's when it dawned on me. Oh, so when I was eating all this food that I normally eat regularly, because I'm thinking maybe it's my age, maybe it's, my body changing. It wasn't that my age or my body had changed. My activity had changed. I used to work as a dean of culture for a middle school, and I was always with the kids playing basketball, walking up and down the halls, making sure students was where they're supposed to be, right? I'm always active. I'm always moving. People don't realize, like, just moving constantly, little things that you do around the house, cleaning the bathroom, washing, that is activity that burns fuel and you don't even realize it. Like, everybody thinks they need to go to the gym. Sometimes you might just need to be more active. So when I started driving Uber, I wasn't as active. And as a result, my body wasn't burning fuel at the same rate it used to when I was, walking to the train station, to catch a bus, to go to a place that was a building, working in a facilities department where, I would walk 3 miles a day and didn't even feel it because I was just walking up and down a building. Activity. So I'm dealing with, debt. I'm dealing with divorces. I'm dealing with diabetes. And it's like, but Lord, I left Georgia to follow you. I'm following you to the best of my ability. And I thought, like, what? Why is my life like this? This doesn't look like a life that is equated to one who follows you either. What is going on? It just starts a lot of confusion. But God's grace is sufficient, and His strength is made perfect in weakness. So as I'm, thinking about in this situation where I'm about to go drive and I realize you're dealing with discomfort and you don't want to lean into the discomfort of what you're feeling. You want to distract yourself. I think I talked about it yesterday. And I just said, you know what? I'm just going to trust that whatever it is that I need, God will take care of it. Yes, God, I know I got to do some things and so forth and so on. But right now, I don't need to go because that's what my mind is telling me. I need to do something. I need to do something to make sure that, I do my part for God to, you don't need to do anything. Everything has already been taken care of. What you need to do is you need to rest. See, we don't actually realize that is something that God commands us to do. 6 days you shall work, on the seventh day you rest. To keep it holy in honor of Him. And that is so hard because we're fed this idea and this diet of, no, you got to work for what you want. And God is like, yeah, but I'm asking you to do what I'm asking you to do, and you want to do something different. Okay, fine. You want to work? How about you work at resting? How about you work at being still? You're driving yourself crazy to achieve something that I can achieve for you, but because you don't like how or when I'm going to do it, you want to try and make things happen. As He told me before, you can't make my plan happen for you. So either you're going to get in line with me or you're going to frustrate yourself trying to accomplish that which only I can accomplish for you. But what am I got to do? You only got to do what I'm telling you to do. So what I need for you is I need you to rest. And it's amazing because when I'm resting, I hear God clear. I hear him, he'll drop something in my spirit in the wee hours of the night. And I know why. It's because that's when he has my undivided attention. My body still, my mind still, my soul still, my spirit is still. I am at rest. And because I'm at rest, he can reveal to me whatever it is that he wants to reveal. So I'm always in the middle of the night, waking up, not necessarily waking up, but getting up, having to write something down because he just dropped something in my spirit, answering a question that I didn't even, ask, but it was in the back of my mind, something that I thought about. And I was like, how do you, I don't understand. How do you do that? He just answered a question to me about branding while I was watching a series on Netflix. And I'm like, oh, that's what this is. So it's a struggle, right? Just learning to rest because your body is in a place where you don't have the same type of energy. And if you don't recognize where you are, and I'll use this term, in what season you're in. And the season, I realized, and he showed me, he said, the season you're in is determined by the goals that you're trying to achieve. Right now, I'm in the season of trying to achieve the goal of fasting for 40 days and allowing myself to get closer to God, to trust him more, and do something spiritually that will change the trajectory of my life towards that which God desires. I'm trying to die to myself. And that leads me into why. There's some things that I know about myself. I don't really talk about these things. And I think it's because of my training in speaking. It's like, no, you just want to always be positive and things of that nature. I do share transparent stories, but I don't necessarily know if I share a lot of the things that I struggle with, just personal struggles that I have. And I realize, I was thinking about this earlier. I was like, okay, Lord, what are some things that I struggle with? And I ended up writing out 8 things, just looking at my life and evaluating the things that have come up over the years and just putting a name to them because I think that's one of the reasons why I don't share is because I don't necessarily put a name to stuff. And sometimes I think things are kind of a one-off thing. And it's like, no, that's not a one-off thing. That's a heart thing. It's because that's in your heart. And these are the things that God is developing or pulling out of me, helping me to grow in my maturity in the character of God, which would remove a lot of these things from my life, but it's a struggle. So one of the first things that I'll say that I struggle with is trust. I don't really trust people that much. I don't mean that in a sense like I'm expecting you to hurt me or harm me, things of that nature, but I just don't put myself in situations and circumstances where you have the opportunity because fundamentally, I believe people can switch up on you in a moment's notice. I see it all the time, and you just never know. I find myself, as I think about just different friendships that I have, when I'm struggling in life, I don't call them. Right? It has to be such a dire situation for me to say, "Hey, man, I'm struggling with something," or I need help. And it's not because, for me, part of it is the way in which I process. How do I put this? I believe that before I come to somebody with any problem that I'm responsible for dealing with, I need to have done everything I possibly can do before I come to you. That's just me. Like, I need to make sure that I have done everything that I possibly can do to remedy or solve my problem before I bring it to you and make it your problem. The other thing about it is sometimes I'm like, well, what can you do? I got to deal with this. Like coming to somebody and talking to them about my problems, like, what are you going to do? Whatever advice that you give me is going to be based on one, let me rephrase that. What I've seen, what I've experienced in those times where I have shared some of the stuff that I've been going through. People give me advice based on what they feel about a situation and how uh, they think I should operate to protect myself. And I get it, but it's always out of fear. It's just always out of fear. And I'm like, I can't operate that way. So a lot of advice I get, it's just like, just, do this and just do that. And it's just like, yeah, but that's not going to solve the problem. It'll give me temporary relief, but I need to solve this problem. I'm not someone who just wants temporary relief. I want to solve the problem. And oftentimes people give me advice that gives temporary relief, but it doesn't necessarily solve the problem. And now I don't know why, it bothers me. So I don't really, come to people in that light. The other thing is that people care about you and they don't want you going through what you're going through. And I don't know what it is, but they feel like I don't know. I can't describe it, but because of their love for you, they usually don't give advice that is best for you. It is best for the remedy in regards to how they feel. I don't really know if that makes sense, but it makes them feel better. And because it makes them feel better, they think it's good advice, but it's really not based on you. And the reason why I say that is because most of the people who give me advice don't ask me any questions about details. They just don't. They'll hear a story or they'll hear something and you need to, and it's just like, yeah, but you can't, you didn't ask a question, and that's always been a challenge of mine. Like, I know, if I don't feel like you actually heard me, if I don't feel like you can articulate my issue in your own words, or you don't demonstrate that before you give advice, I rarely take the advice because you don't know the issue. You can't solve a problem if you don't even know what the problem is. All you hear is pain. So I don't really trust people like that. But that stems from, family challenges, things that have been said to me, things that have been used against me, flaws that I have that have been used to destroy my self-image. And as a result, I never really put myself in situations where someone can use something to destroy how I see myself. And that comes also because I don't necessarily trust myself as much as I have in the past. When you go through traumatic experiences, it starts to chop at your confidence and, more importantly, your self-worth. And over the years, some stuff had really been broken down, and God is in this process of building me back up. Even doing this podcast was a stretch for me. Um, but I'm so grateful and I'm so glad that I'm doing it. Uh, but again, trust. It's an issue. Trust issues often lead to pride. I struggle with pride. And I'll say it this way, not trust issues. It is trust issues, but the trust in how it depletes your self image leads to pride. I think one's perception of themselves is what causes them to be prideful. And I struggle with pride. I want to feel good about myself. I want to be seen in a positive regard. And as a result, I don't like anything or anyone to make me feel as if I'm less than or put me in a position where I feel powerless. Right? So I'm always, I can't say always, I'm a lot better than what I used to be. But I can, I had a tendency to be defensive. And internally, I still want to be defensive. I just have learned to fight it so that if someone is coming to me about me in a way that is challenging, I can at least do the best that I can to try and hear whatever part of it that's the truth. Because everything that someone says about you is not going to be the truth. But there may be a kernel of it that I need to address. And sometimes, not sometimes, when you are not in a particular state of mind, you will disregard what they're saying because the things that you know aren't true, you will use to justify ignoring everything else that may be true. And I've done that, you know. But one of the things that I have in growing up have learned to do is to again go back and reflect on a particular situation or circumstance because I never want to damage relationship. I'm a relational guy. God is a relational God, and He's adamant about having healthy relationships. So, and I've always been, that way. So if somebody does say something, I'll go back and I'll be like, where, where did I go wrong? And if I see anything, I need to go and make that particular part right. It's just me. And it might take 2 days, it might take 3 days, it might be an hour, it might be 5 minutes later, but I'm gonna always come back and say, hey, you know, I did hear, it may not seem like I was listening, but I did hear you. At that time I couldn't process the way that I could away from the situation, but I did hear you. And in processing, I did notice this, and I just want to come back and apologize because I recognize that this is wrong. And but that again, that pride, it's a struggle. It can cause you. It has caused me to put myself in situations that could have cost me my life because I couldn't back down from a situation or circumstance that wasn't necessary in the first place, but because my self-image was struck up against, and I felt like I needed to do something to put myself back into a position of power. In my own mind, I put myself in a situation that could have cost me dearly, and that's what pride does, and it comes from a self-esteem issue. It's your self-perception being a certain way, and as a result, you trying to manufacture something out of a moment, and that's not how it works. So trust pride. The other, from pride, you become self-righteous. And it took me a long time to understand what self-righteousness was or is. But as God would reveal to me in my time of reflection and journaling and writing and just cross-examining myself, I recognize that self-righteousness is having a righteousness in your own eyes. What that means is that you use you as the standard for what is right and wrong, and you're not the standard. And I remember God showing me this one day, and it was just like, I didn't know I was doing that. He's like, yeah, I know you didn't know. That's why I'm telling you. But you're not the standard. I am the standard, meaning God. And what it is you try to do all the things. It's self-righteousness is about doing work, right? I did this, I did that, I did this, I did that. It's stemming from pride, right? I did. And therefore, I'm worthy. And God is like, that's not what makes you worthy. Faith is the only thing. So doing works, going back to rest, trying to work myself to worthiness. God has told me you can't work yourself to worthiness. That's not. You will either believe and trust what I say about you is true because you trust me, or you don't. You and you will do something out of that knowing, but you can't work to get to that. You have to have a relationship with me and trust me in what I say about you to know that. So, trust, pride, self-righteousness. And when you have these issues, the other problem is you compare yourself. I've had a comparison issue since I was a kid. My family unknowingly, through situations and circumstances, I think that's the word, pitted me or pinned me against my older brother. And I won't say against, it was just that, no. What it was the way I saw how they treated him was the way I wanted them to treat me. I mean, he was the golden child. At my mom's funeral, I remember saying my brother was my grandmother's favorite, and I was my mother's. And everyone laughed because they knew it was true. Now I'm older, I'm a lot more mature, but I had, compared myself to him. He was the standard. And that's what you do when you compare. You make some other human being the standard for your value and worth in this world. And if you can't be like them, then you are no longer worthy. And what's crazy is that this is comparison at its root is idolatry. That's wild to me because I just realized that. You're using someone who is flawed as the governing entity for how you feel, think, believe, desire, and ultimately how you behave. Because you're trying to be like them. And if you're not like them, then you are less than. And here's the other thing. When you compare, you also enter into this pride because you start to strive to be better than them, which is what Satan got kicked out of heaven for. He said, I will ascend to higher than the throne. Satan was comparing himself to God. He was righteous in his own eyes. He developed this pride because he felt like he wanted to be better. And ultimately because he didn't trust. So, then there's again the comparison. And that leads to judgment. I can be very critical. I can be very, now I have a very critical mind because that's the gift that God has given me. But He's given it to me to be of benefit and not for being destructive. So I have to grow and develop, and when I'm using my uh, critical thinking skills, my critiques, so that I'm not tearing people down, but I'm using it to understand what's going on in terms of identifying the roots of their problems in order to build them back up. But I can be very, very critical. And that's problematic when it comes to relationships. It's just, it's time and place. And sometimes I don't operate in the best timing or the best place. Now, I'm doing a lot better than I used to be, but I'm still not where I need to be because of where I'm going. Um, and being critical when things don't go the way you want them to leads to anger. Now, I don't necessarily, well, in certain situations, I lack patience. When I, here's, here's when, and it's still bad. There's no getting around it. It's like, no, you can't do this. But when I think you know better or you should know better, it is hard for me to, what's the word, put up with. Like when I'm in traffic and I see people do certain things, driving a certain way, I get pissed off sometimes. It's like, what do you, but here's the thing. Here's the thing. It's when I'm trying to achieve something and what you're doing is hindering me, which goes back to trust. Because I need to believe that it doesn't matter what you're doing, I'm still going to be able to do what it is that I need to do. I can't control what you're doing, but I can control what I'm doing. But again, all of this stuff, man, it plays into how I interact sometimes with people. And I know these things. Anger, that's a challenge. Um, Another one is that anger produces when your anger can't get you what you want, you become afraid. So fear. You start to be fearful that someone has the power to do something that you can't control or you can't stop. They have the power to control something. They have the power to make you look a certain way. They have the power. Like you start to become fearful. And then that bleeds over into your own life. Oh, I can't do this and I can't do that. And because this person and because that. And you start to live in fear. And for most of my life, I've battled with being afraid. Like for 20, I say I was what, 2, 3, so about 20 years. I was um I was afraid of the dark. I was afraid of the dark till I was 21 years old. Don't laugh at me. That's not funny. But I was. I was about 2, 3 years old, and I was at my grandfather's house, my biological father, which is crazy because I remember my grandfather. I don't remember my biological father, but I was at my biological grandfather's house in Connecticut, and he let us watch Swamp Thing. It's an old TV show from way back in the day, and we was up fairly late. So when I went to bed, I woke up in the middle of the night. And if you know anything about those, not, I think it's nylon, those bubble coats, the sleeve was pushed in. So when I woke up, it's dark, but there's some light in the room, so you can see like the silhouette of everything. I look over to my left, and I still remember this. I look over to my left. In the chair was this coat, and the sleeve was pushed in, and it looked like a mouth with no teeth. I get up screaming. I am screaming. I would not stop screaming. My aunt Sean, she's really my cousin, but she was so much older, so I call her my aunt. She literally had to drive from Boston to Connecticut to come get me because I would not stop. You're gonna get me out of here. So that stayed with me. I didn't understand that that was in the back of my head, running in the background for years. So I was afraid of the dark for 20 till I was 21 years old. Until one day I had already given my life to Christ. And I remember I was staying at a church house. I'd moved back to Boston, didn't really have a place to stay. One of the dudes from the church heard about what was going on. He let me stay there. And I was in this room, had one bed, twin bed, a desk, and there was a closet, away from me off to the right. And again, it's dark. There's like a silhouette coming from the moon. It's like 1 o'clock in the morning. And you know how, when you're laying down, at least for me, if my leg falls off the bed, I jump, right? You kind of fall asleep. And if my arm falls off the bed, I jump. And it's because I think something's underneath the bed, right? And then I look over and the closet is cracked open. Like it's about this much open. And my mind starts thinking about all kinds of crazy demons, ghosts, and goblins are in there. And they're just waiting for me to go to sleep. And they're just going to come out and get me. I am 21 years old, y'all, and I am afraid of the dark. So while this is happening, I pull the sheet up to my chest, and then I pull it up to my neck. Then I pull it up over my nose, and then I pull it up over my head because my mind is racing. And as I am under these covers, thinking that this sheet is what's protecting me from these ghosts, goblins, and demons, I hear God say to me, do you really think that if there was something in that closet or something underneath that bed, that sheet would protect you? It was so wild because it just didn't dawn on me. When you're afraid, you do some very, very foolish things. And it just never dawned on me that I am doing anything to protect myself, even lying to myself. I'm just assuming. No, I just told myself this sheet will protect me. The sheet will protect me. What? And at that moment, I realized fear has had a vice grip hold on me because it became a microcosm of my overall life. Things I wanted to do that I was afraid to do, things that I didn't want to do that I did because it was just fear. And I knew at that moment that the only way that I would be able to overcome it was to face whatever it was that I thought would happen that I didn't want to happen. And I said, you know what? I just can't live like this. So I jumped up and I went to the closet door and I grabbed the closet door and I opened it and I just stepped in. And I remember screaming, if you're going to kill me, you're just going to have to kill me. But I will not be afraid. I will not be afraid. And tears began falling down my eyes. And I know you're like, whoa, what happened? Nothing happened because there was nothing in the closet. But the reason why I was crying was because I was facing the internal belief. I was facing that which I believed would happen that I didn't want to happen. I was facing it, and I knew I was taking the risk of losing my life because of what I believed would happen. but I just didn't want to be afraid anymore. And from that moment, I've never been afraid of the dark. But there have been situations and circumstances where I compromised on certain things, or, I did something I shouldn't have done. I didn't do something I should have done, right? Because I was afraid. And again, the only way to overcome that is to acknowledge it and to face it head on. I remember having to confront someone about something that was going on in a workplace, and how terrified I was because they were in a position that I thought that they could use to hurt me in some way, shape, or form. But it was like, doing what I know is the right thing to do is more important than what you can do to me. And I just went and I said what I needed to say. And, as it turned out, they saw what I was talking about. It was like, yeah, we need to do something about this. So, I'm still working through doing this podcast. I don't necessarily know how to do a podcast. I'm like, man, what am I going to talk about for the, 40 days? I'm trusting that, as things come up and God shows me different things, I'm just going to share whatever it is I got. Some of this podcast are pretty long, but I'm hoping that, you're getting something out of it. And the last thing I'll say is, from fear, you become extremely self-conscious. Now, most people that I've known have said to me, yo, you just seem like you got it all together. They'll say things like, they'll assume that I'm okay. They will assume that I'm emotionless. It's not that I'm emotionless. What it is I've trained myself not to react certain ways. Now I have a threshold, but I've trained myself, whether it be eye contact. I had to look myself I couldn't look myself in the eye. It was a struggle to look other people in the eye. I literally would be in the bathroom and I would look myself in the eye. This is one of the reasons why I can look at the camera. And I would just be so uncomfortable. And it was because I didn't like what I was seeing. Not that I didn't, like how I looked. It was that I knew the truth about me. I'm not what everybody thought I was. I'm not the confident person. I'm not the good guy that they think I am. It's just not the truth. It doesn't mean that I don't have good qualities. Well, let me rephrase that. It doesn't mean I'm not a good guy. I'm just not the best dude in the world that you think I am. And it's not that people think I'm the best dude in the world. It's that they have this general, like, yo, he's just a good dude. And sometimes when I look at it, it's like, yeah, you have that approach. You have that opinion about me. I don't have that opinion about me. And what happens is that when you start to hear what other people say about you, that's favorable. You start trying to live up to that. So you don't want to do anything that, might risk the favorable opinion that other people have of you. So you start to hide. You start to not show, all of who you are. You don't share what you truly believe. You don't share what you think. You don't share what you feel. You don't share what you desire. You don't, for the most part, you try to be as controlled as possible, right? And I've lived my life trying to control myself as much as possible. And it's because sometimes I just don't feel like there's grace for me. I struggle with, these things, right? You become self-conscious. You don't want somebody to see you a certain way. What are they thinking? What are they looking? It's like, yo, you're more concerned about what they think about you and they're not even thinking about you. What are they saying right now? Are they, you know what I mean? I could be going to the supermarket, right? I'm starting to think, oh, is this person looking at me like what it, and it's like, what is wrong with you? Who notices me, right? Who notices me and what are they thinking about me? Self consciousness makes you want attention, even though you shy away from it. I'm not really someone who likes a lot of attention. I like attention, but it's from particular people, right? For my girl, my wife, or whoever, you know, you want that kind of, you want that attention, right? But I don't wear jewelry. I'm not a flashy dude. I've never been that way. It just, for me, it's just like one, it's not attention that I want. I don't want you to think I got a whole bunch of money. If I did, I would never want you to know. That's just me. Two, it's not efficient. I don't like it's too much to be keeping up with chains and I gotta every day I go out, I gotta keep up this appearance and I'm just not the one to do all that. Whatever. If you don't like that, you just don't like it. But there are other things that I think I'm known for, things that people would associate with me doing well. I don't want to mess up in those areas because I never want them to. And it's just like, yo, it is what it is, right? Things that people have said that I they don't necessarily like about me, or it's not that they didn't say it that way. It's that when they were upset, they said some things, and you're like, oh, that's really how you feel. Oh, okay. So you start to wonder, is that what other people? So you start to become self conscious. Um, but these are some of the things that I struggle with. As a man, uh, it's it can be very very difficult. Um, and I don't necessarily talk about it. Again, it's like, well, how do we deal with it? Because I don't want to spend my life talking about the struggle. Like I'm trying to get past this, but the reality of it is that I need to talk more about what I struggle with and when I struggle with it, because there are other people who are struggling with it. But I don't want to just talk about the struggle. I want to share with you how I'm actively doing things to improve in those particular areas, uh, so that I can become mature in that particular area. So I wanted to share that simply because hey, this is another side of me. This is some things that about me you may not know. Um, and hopefully inspire you to kind of be more reflective about you. What is it that you struggle with, and not being okay with it, but being able to lean into it, acknowledge it, and sit with that and understand, like, why do I struggle with this? What do I struggle with? Why do I struggle with it? And how is it affecting my life? You need to know what's your why, right? So I wanted to share that with you. I hope you got something out of it. This is day 8 of 40 days of fasting. And as always, don't try to change the world. Instead, build you, and your world will transform. All right, y'all. See y'all next time. Peace.